Hello, everyone. So today we're going to be delivering a webinar on effective cash flow forecasting. My name is Harold Hong. I'm from Profix Software. On the call with me today, I have Victor, who is the VP of Sales at SSI. Victor, thank you for having me, first and foremost. But before we jump right into the demonstration, let's actually talk about cash flow forecasting and really why it's important. Now, when we talk about cash flow forecasting, really what we want to talk about is making decisions off of the information that any solution provides in terms of accurately reflecting what the data points in our ERP system or in our data source. So whether you guys are leveraging Infor or Microsoft Dynamics, um, we want to connect to those ERPs to really pull out the cash information, anything that has an impact on cash, so we can present various users with metrics, KPIs at a high level so that they can make decisions knowing the cash position that they have, looking out 30 days in advance, 60 days in advance, and so on. So the importance of leveraging a tool like Profix is that Profix is a corporate performance management software. And simply what that means is that we don't just help you budget and plan and really carry out your budget and projections of your cash position. We also help you report on those figures. And when we say report, what we simply mean is when we're reporting numbers to various stakeholders, we want to make sure that they have enough information based on their security to analyze cash trends, to anticipate cash deductions from specific companies and divisions in terms of capital purchases, payroll adjustments that need to be made, so that they can make decisions that will really have an impact strategically on their business going forward. Now, the slide that you guys are currently looking at really outlines what Profix helps organizations with in terms of budgeting and planning, reporting and analytics, as I just mentioned, as well as financial consolidation and close. This is all wrapped with our workflow and automation. And the ultimate goal at the end of the day is to really automate and streamline some of the mundane tasks within your management cycle, which includes all of these things that you see in this little wheel. Now, when we speak specifically about the different use cases of Profix, I mean, I can talk about each and every one of these points one by one, but I think for today's purpose, we're really looking at how we can budget and plan our cash, right? By simply leveraging Profix workflow to automate the distribution of reports to various players on our management team, various players in our operations team, so that we can come up with a report that benchmarks actuals to budget or actuals to plan in a cohesive manner, right? Profix is going towards the idea of having a virtual financial analyst. And what that simply means is going through disruptive times like we're experiencing in the past couple months. It's not enough to just throw headcount onto specific projects to get them going. Like if someone on our management team has requested scenario A all the way down to scenario Z, well, typically how that's done and traditionally how that's done in the FP&A department is we typically need to throw headcount or additional FTE on projects to get them up and running. But the whole idea and the whole direction of where Profix is going towards this virtual financial analyst simply means that we can leverage technology to scale as opposed to leveraging headcount and FTE to scale different projects within our business. So I just wanted to give a quick introduction of who Profix is and the role of Profix in automating some of the tasks that we have at our organization. We're going to jump into the product overview. But before we jump into the product overview, I just want to pose a question out to the attendees on this webinar. Victor, do you mind kicking off the polling question?
There you go. So the audience can vote by clicking with their mouse on one of the items.
Perfect. And the question is, how far out are you looking to plan out your cash position? And the options are 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, or more than 1 year. And this just gives us a sense of how strategic you want to look at your cash flow planning, or whether it's short term and we should change the delivery of the webinar based on the answers that come in.
Okay, people are voting, so I'll just keep it open until we get a few more votes, Harold.
Awesome.
No, almost half the people have voted.
Yeah, I think we could shut it down now.
Okay, so I'll just close this.
Yep.
And then I will share the answers here. This is what we've got, Harold.
Perfect. So I want to say the majority of people on this call are looking, or on this webinar, are looking to plan out strategically for 1 year out or greater than 1 year out. And some people are just looking to plan out for the short term, so in the current year. So we'll actually be looking at two scenarios based on the answers, and I'll jump straight into the demonstration and close out on any of these slides that you see.
And I'll also mention that the audience can ask questions through the question bar, and I will answer them online or pass them over to Harold at the appropriate time.
Absolutely, and feel free to drop any answers, and Victor will remind me to answer them at the end. Just a little brief background into myself. I actually started my internship at Profix Software right around 3 years ago, working in the professional services team. I've then transitioned my skills to the pre-sales team, where I deal with prospective customers now, and basically selling them on the value of Profix to fix some of the issues that they have in their organization around spreadsheets that are being sent back and forth to various users. How do we improve the dashboard experience to our management team? But really, the screen you're looking at right now that Victor has collapsed the poll, is an example of a Profix dashboard. Right now, your Profix dashboard, or your organization's Profix dashboard, will present stakeholders or end users with metrics and KPIs that are important to them. Right? Not only are these KPIs and metrics presented to them, but these KPIs and metrics are also interactive, meaning that I can look at my charts and graphs and interact with the information or the visualization that's being presented, right? So you can see in the left-hand chart, I have a revenue variance graph that breaks out my actuals versus budget and shows me the variance. So at a high level, you can see that from quarter 1 to quarter 3, we trended downwards in quarter 1, but we more than made up for this shortfall in quarter 3. Now, when we're in a board meeting and we're presenting these visuals, sometimes it's not enough to just look at high level information. Sometimes we need to look and drill down below the details. And that's where Profix dashboards enables finance teams to answer the questions in boardroom meetings just by simply double clicking on any bar. Now you can see that I have a 3-month breakout of the quarterly makeup that you saw in the prior dashboard screen. And Profix shows me that I have momentum driving into quarter 4. Right, so brief introduction into Profix. You have your dashboards, reports, and really any other assets that you have within Profix are all wrapped with Profix security. So you can ensure that your end users only see what they have access to or what's been provisioned for them. Now, within this dashboard, we also have different areas of the dashboard for favorites. So this is really where you'll pin favorite reports for various end users. So if you have someone on your management team who just needs to look at a divisional P&L, this is where they'll go into that report and interact with that report to really spike out any information that they need to make decisions off of the information. Now, I also have a segment of this dashboard called My Tasks. Excuse me. Now, traditionally, when we have any collaborative tasks within an organization, we disperse these collaborative tasks within Excel spreadsheets, right? And we have Excel spreadsheets that are wrapped in an email. And what ultimately ends up happening with emails is that we lose track of the correct version. There's no single source of truth within our organization. And this is critical because when users are inputting budget information for P&L accounts or cash flow driver accounts, We need to rely on this information because the product of this information drives strategic decision making, which is the 1 year out plan or the greater than 1 year out plan that we were talking about earlier. Profix workflow actually manages the different tasks that end users need to input information so that Profix collects and aggregates that information rather than someone on your FP&A team collecting and aggregating this information, which just introduces the likelihood of error being made just due to human intervention. Now, these are a few tasks that are assigned to me because since I'm logged in as Tony Stark, but I actually want to show you what a Profix workflow looks like. Right, and when I open up the Profix workflow, what you'll see is various activities and tasks that are outlined one by one on the left-hand side. Right, within an activity or task, we're actually defining things related to this activity or task. Right, we're defining things like who's the owner of this data entry report. We're defining things like who should be the approver once the owner has submitted their budget. Right? What's the due date for a specific task? How many approvers need to approve this task before we transition to the next item on the workflow? Right? How many notifications do we want to send out to end users? And by structuring your workflow and by structuring any cash planning activities that you may have and you want to scale across multiple departments and divisions, what that'll enable Profix to do is centrally manage your workflow as opposed to you having to manage it on the side of your full-time or daytime job, right? And I'm looking at this workflow in a list view, but to visual learners like myself, you may want to interact with the Profix workflow in a flow view. And I'm actually going to organize this workflow, organize this chaos so that you can see the different areas of my workflow for my budget cycle. Now, we start off by preparing a baseline for our end users, so copying the historicals from last year. And you can see that that step in our workflow is completed. Now, for the other workflow tasks and activities within our organization, I no longer have to chase people down to understand where we're at in a workflow, to understand whether there's a bottleneck in a workflow. As an administrative user within Profix, I can simply go to this flowchart view and manage my workflow in a centralized location. And what that means for you is that you save time in your day to maybe take a half-hour additional lunch or do value-added work for your organization. So brief introduction to the workflow. Don't want to talk too much about the workflow because I think the topic today is really important to businesses today, right? The topic today is cash flow forecasting, but not just cash flow forecasting, effectively planning your cash flow. And some of the things that I'm showing today really help sets a foundation around how we can effectively do it. And really the first place we look at is our Profix workflow. But if we look at some of the tasks that are specifically related to planning out cash flow, one of the first tasks that I want to look at on my dashboard is actually called cash event planning. I can simply click on this task and I can see that it's due at the end of the year. And within this task, an end user doesn't have to look as far as their task, right? What Profix will present them is a list or a schedule of various cash events that are going to happen within the organization. Right? Each cash event has a unique ID, it has a unique description, it has a category. So what exactly is this cash event, whether it's a loan collection or a payroll amount, the specific and underlying amount of the transaction, as well as the dates associated with the transactions. Now, if I'm in December and I'm looking to plan out my cash for January or the next 3 months up until March, there's a few things that I'll want to know as well. And really, this is where we're defining things related to the transactions. So we also have incorporated in the schedule a start and payment date. We have a delay date. So if we want to delay payment to a specific vendor, we want to tell Profix to make that payment delay and reflect that into each and every one of our reports. We also have penalty percentages. So if we choose to delay by X amount of days, what are we looking at in terms of the interest or penalty involved in delaying payment, right? We also incorporate different attributes and characteristics related to transactions, as you can see. So penalty dollars, interest rate, repayment date, as well as a section for comments. Now you'll notice on this schedule, I don't really have an established baseline. I don't really know what my cash position is to begin with. And that's where we equip and enable end users to understand their cash position, right? So the cash position that's important to them. And I can simply look at my 30-day cash position right from this schedule so that I have a baseline and a visual to see when I'm going to have cash, when I'm going to need cash within my business. And you can see that this dashboard report, or this report with the chart, actually breaks out our cash position for the next 30 days out from January to January 31st. But what's more interesting is that you can see that we have a shortfall in cash in January 10th to January 12th. But not only that, we can go back to our cash event planning report and look at the area of the business where we'll need to change or delay payment to a specific vendor so that we have enough to cover our cash or our cash needs for the business. So in terms of our invoice to vendor B, which is an AP payout of 105K roughly on January 7th, let's actually delay this to January 14th of the same year, of the same month, right? And let's actually reflect this on that position or cash flow dashboard position so that we can ultimately see that our cash position will be sufficient to meet the business's needs. Now, you'll see that once we delay, there's a penalty of 2%, and this interest payment will be reflected in the profit and loss statement. So you can see that Profix models are all tightly integrated so that we don't have to worry about the implications on other sides of the business if we do decide to delay. Now, I'm just gonna update these numbers and update the information. And what Profix will do is it'll propagate this information in this schedule to any underlying reports that we have so that we can maintain the cash position we need to thrive during these disruptive times. Okay. So we just looked at a 30-day cash position, and based on that poll question, this can apply to various individuals, but we can extend it out further, right? We can look past the month, we can look past 6 months, we can even look at the yearly level. And within this cash position forecast, you can see that we're breaking out this information by the weeks. So we get a higher level view, a more strategic view of where we're looking or what we're looking at with our cash. But again, the idea is still the same. If we notice we have shortfalls in our cash position, and we know that we have payroll amounts in specific weeks, acquisition of equipment, we need to have that information at our fingertips to be able to make those decisions without putting our business in a position of burden where we'll have to leverage line of credits, unfavorable terms on line of credits in order to sufficiently meet the cash needs of a business. So if we go back to our cash event planning schedule, I'm actually going to change this back to January 7th. I'm actually going to clear it. But let's actually draw from our line of credit now because we see that we have a shortfall in cash in specific weeks, right? And this draw from line of credit, we can just input 100K, for instance. And we can simply just update the report, and Profix will propagate this line of credit, but also draw upon the line of credit that's in Profix. And what we'll see is that we update the entire long-term projection, leveraging this line of credit with the respective interest payments. But we get a view and understanding that we can meet the cash flow needs of the business. Okay. So really, that's one way to look at cash event planning, and that's very detailed, transactional. We can connect to different data sources to pull out this transactional information to help you prepare something like this. But oftentimes, many organizations want to look at something more high level, right? I want to see the information within the confines of a cash flow report. Which brings me to my next topic, which is cash flow forecasting, which is another task that can be assigned to an end user. And really, this is really a consolidated view of the transactions that you saw earlier, but breaks out the most important things or the biggest transactions within our organization, rather than line by line details of what's actually going to happen, right? So within this particular schedule, you can see that we have TMN, T&M invoices, upsell opportunities. Really, you can create these fields within Profix and have Profix become your system of record for these cash projection events, right? But when we update the information related to these transactions, we're really storing it for you. But not only that, we're creating calculations behind the scenes that actually take the invoice amounts and apply the terms by respecting the invoice date and applying that to our cash flow forecast or our cash flow statement so that you have an accurate depiction of your cash at the end of the period, right? And if I access my cash flow forecast, what you'll see is that I've actually updated it. So the information that I've updated propagates into this report as well. And this is a traditional cash flow statement, but you can see that we either can look at it in a dashboard view, or we can look at it in a cash flow forecast with real numbers coming from our data sources and supporting this cash flow. And we can see that the impact of various cash flow needs of the business on the cash flow statement. And we can see if at the end of the period we have enough cash to meet the needs of the business. So two ways to do it. When we're looking at a short-term approach, it may be good to look at the dashboards and the reports and the charts that'll help us visually understand if we can meet the need of the business. But if we want to present something to a board or the management team, it may be necessary to provide concrete numbers as well as concrete details related to the cash in and outs of the business. Okay. Now we just looked at two ways to plan out cash, short-term and long-term. Now, what happens at the end of the day when we're done projecting out our cash, we're done creating a budget, leveraging a CPM solution. What we ultimately want to do is look at financials and reports, right? And I've pinned a report called Integrated Financial Statements. Now, this Integrated Financial Statements is an example of a Profix report. Reports in Profix are entirely configurable, meaning that you can consolidate all of your key financial statements within one report, or you can break and segment them out by each individual report. But within Profix, we enable you to do things like consolidating all the reports so that you can see at a high level how you're performing in each of the reports. Okay. Now, one area we want to focus on today is the cash flow. And you'll see that within this specific report, the cash flow is the center of my report. Now, within any Profix report, reports are designed to be used by multiple individuals. So I can based on my security, I can filter and look at my budget, for instance, for my cash flow as opposed to my actuals. Now, practically speaking, how we see this nowadays is an Excel spreadsheet or an Excel tab for each and every one of these versions, as well as the various months. But within Profix, we consolidate all of these reports into a unified template, which drastically reduces the amount of spreadsheets that live within your organization and that you're actively managing, so that this report adheres to a set of rules that becomes your single source of truth. Now, I'm looking particularly at a cash flow at a very high level. And if I want to drill down into the details, I want to introduce the concept of a guided path of analysis, right? If one of our end users are looking at the integrated financial statements and they need to drill further and look at the information and really analyze the information at a deeper level, they can simply go into the cash flow and click on the link template associated with the data. And what that'll do is it'll pull up very specific information related to your division, department, your entity, and break it out month by month as opposed to just a high-level yearly cash flow, so that you can see the in and outs of cash within your business. Now, again, when we look at this monthly cash flow statement, this cash flow statement, as well as any report within Profix, can be exported, right? It can be exported into Excel, but not only that, it can be exported into PDF if we need a formalized copy for the board, right? But this report has multiple filters because we don't want to create, or we don't want to be in a situation where we're creating multiple reports for each of our entities or departments. We want to let Profix Security do the work of filtering information so that users only focus on what matters to them, so what's been defined in security, and the FP&A team gets their time back from having to manage these reports so that they can look at strategic initiatives for their organization. Now, one thing with cash is that if we're transacting in one local currency, things are a lot simpler. But when we're transacting with multiple currencies, and if your data source or your ERP doesn't have a built-in currency conversion in your ERP, it becomes a problem of how can we look at this information with different reporting currencies. And really, that's where I want to introduce reporting currencies within Profix. Within one single report, we can actually access various reporting currencies to get a different view on our information, depending on where our various underlying companies are in the world. Right, we can report off of different currencies so that we get a holistic view of the business and of the currency that we operate the most. Right, and we support reporting currencies or many-to-many reporting currencies, as well as handling the storage of the exchange rates so that we can do that currency conversion for you. So just one thing to spike out when we're talking about cash is that Profix does handle multiple reporting currencies. Now, once all of this is said and done, right, once we prepare our budget, once we prepare our cash events and bring those over to various underlying reports, what we want to do next is package all of these reports up and send them out to the various end user that actually needs these reports. They need these reports to make decisions. And Profix automates all of that. And what I want to introduce next is a report binder within Profix. And I've actually pinned a report binder, but a report binder is simply just a collection of reports, right? It's a collection of reports within Profix. But not only that, in addition to Profix reports, they're also a collection of external documents that we want to incorporate into these report binders. Once we set up the ordering of our binder, we also want to define who we are distributing out this report binder to. And once that's defined, we can simply kick off this report binder and let Profix send the report binder to an end user's email so that they can interact with the information in Excel, PDF, or PowerPoint format. Now, an example of a report binder that would be sent to an end user's inbox, I've actually favorited it so we can access it quickly. And in a matter of a few seconds, Profix will download this and it'll show us our report binder of the reports that we've seen today, right? With the external title page that we've incorporated with any verbiage that we need. And further than that, the collection of reports that we saw today. Right? But one thing to note with this report binder is that I'm logged in as user Tony Stark, and Tony Stark has a different set of security than any other user. And when we're looking at this report, you'll see that I have access to actually 15 pages of reports or report binders. I have access to 15 pages based on my security. Now, another user may be sent the same report binder, but may only have access to 4 reports. So the point being here is that Profix Security actually extends beyond the application and applies to these report binders. So we can be sure that users only have access to what information that they should see. And with that, that concludes this webinar session. We wanted to give a quick deep dive in How do we budget and project out our cash and our cash position? How do we visualize it? How do we make decisions off of this information? And then how do we package this all up and report on this information and make decisions off of this information? Now, the foundation of what we saw today is all based on Profix workflow, which really automates all of our tasks within our organization that are collaborative. Profix security, which only allows users to see what they can or can't see, right? And these are the real underpinnings of CPM, and having a unified solution that allows you and enables you really to do something like this and to really scale the organization. With that, I'll pass it off to Victor. Victor, thank you for having us on this call again to really talk about effective cash flow forecasting. We definitely appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Harold. Any questions? Feel free to put them into the box right now. If not, we'll send you an email with the link to the webinar and you'll be able to review it. Feel free to chat with us anytime on our website or reply back to the email. We're more than happy to give you a customized demo. And now to the prize draw for people that attended. I took everybody's names and I put them into this randomizer, and we'll pick a name. The prize today is a $40 gift card of your choice.
Wow, that's awesome.
Nadia B. Let me see if Nadia is in the webinar. She is not, so I'm going to pick another name. People had to attend and be present during the draw.
In the meantime, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them while we're on this call.
Michael D. Looks like he left. Let me try one last time here. I've got to give away this gift card.
If you can't find anyone, I'll take it, Victor.
Nadia again. Let's go again. Stephen Z. Yes, Stephen is on the webinar. So I'll get in contact with you, Stephen, and find out what your gift card is of your choice. And thank you, Profix, for providing the gift card for the time to give us the webinar. And we'll follow up with you by email, and we're more than happy to work with you on a detailed business case and demo. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great day.
Bye now.